All right, there's just a few more slides to finish up, so this won't take long. And I think as my timer was clicking down, I misspoke on retroactive at the end of the last video. So just a reminder, proactive interference, you remember old information, retroactive interference, you remember the new information. For example, you remember your locker combination this year, but you can't remember last year's locker combination. And the reason why is because the new combination has replaced the old combination in your mind. So once again, if you write down porn and you just remember that it's what you remember, you won't miss a question. Proactive, you remember old information. Retroactive, you remember new information. Let's make sure you have that down. Let's make sure, here's the examples for proactive and retroactive. Learning a friend's email address in high school and a familiar old email address interferes with the recall of a friend's new college email address versus you learn a password for your new debit card and you can no longer remember what the heck your password or your PIN was for your old debit card. Okay. The ominous question of can you repress? Sigmund Freud believed that you could repress memories that you did not want to remember, things that were traumatic, that you pushed into your unconscious so that you would no longer remember them. And what we know is, Freud, as interesting as he is not always correct for the human mind and human behavior. So repression is not a thing. We naturally forget tons of stuff, but things that were specifically traumatic, you're going to remember them. One of the easiest examples of that is people who survived things like the Holocaust. Talk about traumatic events, but these people that survived are able to give us very, very detailed accounts that we can fact check and see that, yes, what they remembered is correct. And if you would want to forget something, I believe a lot of those memories are things that I would want to forget, but they're not. So repression is not a thing. And then Elizabeth Loftus, who we did our TED Talk on, this is the very last part. Remember, she's all about misinformation and how exposure to misinformation can then actually alter your memories. Remember, she said your memories are like a Wikipedia page. We can go in and alter them, and so can other people. And so exposure to misinformation can cause people to misremember. And the car accident that we already talked about, that experiment that was done when we say how fast were the cars going when they hit each other versus how fast were the cars going where they smashed into each other. Which one is closer to the actual accident? Well, this is, but when we use the word smashed, people recall things that looked more like this because of that leading misinformation. Source amnesia is where we attribute to the wrong source something that we've experienced. Things like, did I read about it or did that actually happen to me? And we did that study with kids where they read a story about Mr. Magic, and then a magician actually came in, and kids thought that the magician that came in did things that actually was in the book. Which happens to us a lot. And once again, it's through no fault of anyone. But this is a thing where we forget where we actually learned something, or we think that it happened to us, but it's something that happened to somebody we read about. And that's why we should not trust eyewitness testimony. You will remember things differently than what you actually saw it, and eyewitness testimony is probably not something that should be used as often as it is, or we should believe eyewitnesses as much as we do just because somebody says, oh, I saw it. I know what I saw with my own two eyes. I'm sure you think you know what you saw with your own two eyes, but that may not have been what actually happened. Okay? And that was Loftus's other thing, was child memories of abuse. Where if you recall a memory from when you were 5 years old, when you're 40, it may not be a complete and full memory. So we probably shouldn't totally trust it, even though we can agree that it might be a traumatic memory for you to recall or to think that you're recalling it. So the areas of agreement on what we think about for constructed memories of abuse: we know that abuse happens, we know injustice happens, we know forgetting happens, but we do know that recovered memories are incomplete, and anything before the age of 3 is unreliable because of infantile amnesia. We do know that if you get a memory from hypnosis, it's not something that we can deem as reliable. And a memory, whether it's a real memory, a constructed memory, or a memory that is not complete, it can be emotionally upsetting no matter what. So people should be treated with kindness and care if they're having these memories. And there's Miss Elizabeth Loftus. All right, if you want to improve your memory, study repeatedly, use all the tricks that we gave to make the material meaningful, activate retrieval cues, use mnemonic devices, minimize interference, sleep more, and the minimize interference is get off your phones, and test your own knowledge to see what you know and what you don't know. The end. Sorry that went a little longer.